We part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Swing of the miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's episode 177 of Drunk on the Court. Mark, it's been a busy week for the Sixers. They've we got overloaded with the stat news again, so we're going to be right back at it with the going over all the crazy statistics. Man, it was an exciting week to watch. The Sixers, they're on a little bit of a streak, right? They do lose the other night in Indiana. But man, what a week to celebrate the Sixers and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible this year, and regardless of everything else, like when you look at the big picture stuff, they're only going to be judged by how they do in the playoffs, and that's true. But I mean, to take a step back and just enjoy really the greatness like that Joel Embiid, number 21's putting on a nightly basis, that's worth it. That's worth it as a fan. It makes the season fun regardless of what happens. Otherwise, maybe not in the moment. Sometimes, like we get caught up in the wins and losses, but looking back on it and looking at where just these numbers that we were talking about prior to the show, and that, like, I mean, this is pretty historic stuff. And
when you look at some of these numbers, right, and like, let's start here. Start last night. The stat news that comes out, late last night. In the last 5 days, you've had 4 different guys put up like these NBA 2K numbers, right? You get Luka Doncic with a 73-point game. I think it's tied for the third highest single game total ever. You had, the other night, Embiid dropped 70. And then you also have Devin Booker and Kat dropping 62, like all within 5 days. And I don't know if that says more about the talent of those 4 guys, or if it says how inefficient the NBA defense is in the regular season.
Yeah. It could be a little of both, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. And, it just too, like when you mention those players in particular, I mean, you look at Cat, right? He was always Karl Anthony Towns was always a player. I think that people wish they were getting more out of. And then they draft Ant Edwards, and it kind of like this thing kind of comes together over a few years, and he's still there and a part of it. And, so like, I think for a lot of people, it was like the talent to kind of do that kind of thing was always there, but maybe up the par now that they have Anthony Edwards and stuff,
right?
That's a lot better of a team. Devin Booker has always been somebody who, like, I think he's got that very, like, first of all, I mean, you could tell by the way he plays, right? Like Devin, like has always like been very open and adamant about just like aspiring to be like Kobe. And when you watch him play, you could tell he's somebody who's grown up on the Kobe tape, you know?
Oh, 100%. Like
Yeah.
you can definitely see that, right? And the even crazier thing, like the night that Embiid dropped 70 and Karl Anthony Towns dropped 62 is the same. It's the same day that Kobe had dropped 81. All three, the Kobe 81, the Embiid 70, and the Karl Anthony Towns 62 all happened on January 22nd.
Yeah,
Like
that's insane.
it's wild. It's wild to see. And I think to go back to something you were talking about, the people that are in the boat of like, wait until the second round, show me in that round.
Hmm.
I get it. I get that 100%.
Sure.
I get why people are so jaded to say like, this is great, but like, what does that really do for me? If the season's gonna, if I think the season's gonna end the way I think it's gonna end.
Right.
And I would tell you, like, you're looking at the forest and you're missing the trees. Like you're missing that. Like you're forsaking the experience of these monumental moments
Hmm.
in franchise history, right? Because now the debate is, Embiid and Iverson, right?
Right.
A lot of us who are now fans and kind of coming into the prime of our fanhood grew up with Iverson, and Iverson was the best player in franchise that we remember seeing in franchise history, right? And now
Yeah.
there's a debate because of the numbers that Embiid is putting up and the ease at which he's putting them up. And in most cases, he's not even playing a lot of these games. He's not even playing the fourth quarter. Um, his season right now, he's got 1,100 as of Tuesday. So this is
Mhm.
minus the Indiana game. He had 1,156 points in 1,096 minutes. Like he's
Yeah.
averaging more than a point a minute. And
Right.
if he was playing regular game minutes, he'd be averaging somewhere. I would have to say somewhere in the mid 40s.
Hmm.
If you kind of project it out, or if you project that out over, a 40, 42, 40-minute stretch, you're missing the experience of those games where, you know, that's the stuff where you build your fandom. And
Right.
but it's this ebb and flow, right? You gotta what do you got? You gotta bleed to know bliss, right?
Right.
You gotta experience all of that pain to
Yeah.
be able to kind of get the experience of when it does happen. Like
Yeah.
I will tell you, Mark, like you can go back to some of these shows before we were doing them together.
Mhm.
I have this like fantasy, like this dream of like it's this premonition, something that like I have this picture of Embiid sitting on the front of a bus, like holding like the Larry O'Brien trophy and
Yep.
like a giant bottle of champagne driving down Broad Street, just
Yeah.
like in the middle of a parade, in the middle of like 2 million people. Um, I feel like on some level that is an experience that I'm kind of like willing into existence. Even if I'm the only one standing on top of on top of a building, kind of screaming it. It's just I love watching this dude play. I
Yeah.
just love it. I love watching him play, man. It is just it's what an experience.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like what you mentioned about the trees from the forest type of thing. I think about any of our five major sports teams in Philly, and anytime they've had success, I've looked back on it with fond memories throughout the whole thing, even if it didn't end in a championship. Like I think of
Right.
um, being a little kid and watching that '01 team, that Sixers team, and I think about that
Man.
Toronto series and things that led up to that run to the
Mhm.
finals. And I've had that thought many times. The Phillies championship in '08, like there was how many great moments prior to them getting to the series.
Yep.
Um, winning a Joe Blanton home run, and
Mhm.
like things like that. And it's like, I think we're kinder to those things looking back on them than in the moment. But
Yeah.
we're here to tell you, I think that like those, don't lose sight of those moments when they happen, because they are really special. And you know, I've had the same premonitions about Embiid and other teams here. I mean, I've thought about that so many times,
Yeah.
about our teams and our top players and stuff. History tends to be fonder of them later on, though, looking back on it. And I think that's just
Yeah.
because we're so like, part of being a fan is being emotional, right? Like in the moment you get
Yeah.
caught up in,
You're
yeah.
not wrong.
So,
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're to that Iverson team. There's a really good documentary. It's called Everything But the Chip, which is
mm,
about that 01 journey, which is a really good watch.
okay.
Um,
I don't think
but
I've seen
like
that. I'll have to check that out.
just so the stats from that night, right? Embiid has a record for so a franchise record, right? So the 100 point Wilt game travels with the Warriors. So
Mm,
that stat is technically part of the Warriors franchise. So the 70 point is a franchise record, 70 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists. Like yeah, it's the first 70-15-5 game in NBA history.
wow.
Um since December 1st. He's averaging 40 points, 11, almost 12 rebounds, and 5 assists.
Mm,
And that's for the month of December.
that's,
Like
yeah.
that's since so that's that those stats are over what it's now what almost 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that's that's not a week and a half. Like
No.
that's a solid 2 months of
Yeah.
Jesus Christmas. He's the only player with 65, 15, and 5 over the last 40 years.
Mm,
You're when you talk about some of these stats, you're talking about him in rare air,
yeah.
right? Center. Can you? All right, here you go. You ready for a little quiz?
Yeah.
Centers with 65 plus point games. There have been 3. So Embiid obviously won.
Uh, was it? Was Russell one of them?
Who was not?
Wow. Will?
I would have thought that too.
Yeah.
Will
Um, Shaq?
mm, David Robinson,
Oh, wow.
the
Yeah.
Admiral. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't. It took me a while. It took me a while to get there. That one I had to look up. I
I think
got
I would have had a
like
couple more names before I got to the Admiral there, but that's a good kid.
right, but like it's just been a wild ride just to
Yeah.
see him, and he's doing it with ease. Talk about Did you see the Kevin Durant reaction video
I
that was
did. Yeah.
floating around? Talk
Yeah.
about that for a minute.
Yeah. KD's like, he's one of those guys, like we just mentioned about Booker. And maybe that's why that works there in Phoenix, like with the two of them.
Hmm.
But like, I always kind of was struck by Durant as like, Durant's also a fan of basketball. Like, he
Absolutely.
he loves, but like I think he loves talking about his own legacy and things, and like where he fits in like the GOAT conversation and things like that. But I think he's
Mhm.
just a fan. And I mean, if you didn't get a chance to see his reaction when he was told about Embiid's game, he looks like completely like all of us did, when he hears it. He's like, he makes this face. I mean, just like he's
Like
completely like blown away and happy for him,
right, like
like,
it was like giggly fanboy,
yeah.
super excited, but like also like holy shit. Like it was cool because you almost like what you're talking about. The reaction was just like any other person that would have like come across that stat and go, "Wait, what the? He got 70?"
Yeah.
Because of his size and because of his range. Right. One of the most impressive parts about the 70-point game is that there was only one 3-pointer. All of it was
Yeah,
all
that's
these the mid-range game, his mid-range game, right at what they refer to as the nail, right?
yeah,
That free throw extended area.
yeah,
It's almost like a layup. Like it is
Yeah.
automatic from that area. And his efficiency at the free throw line is that of something that I can't wrap my head around.
He has a Embiid, like with the mid-range game, there's a level of like he can physically dominate when he wants to. And
Yeah.
that just
Oh
comes
yeah.
with the physical gifts, right? Like, but he has a like he has a touch around the net, like around the rim and stuff
Mhm.
that like very few bigs I've ever seen in my life have. I know people will talk about like, you know, Hakeem had like kind of like a more of a kind of touch around the rim and all, but I wasn't
Mhm.
alive when Hakeem played, so I didn't know.
I got
I,
you.
di- I didn't get a chance to see um, Hakeem do that kind of thing. But Joel's like the closest, I guess, to a player like that in terms of just like being able to. He just has like this effortless stroke around the rim, and then in that ensuing uh, 2 point areas outside, inside the 3 point line. He's kind of like, and it's kind of like the mid ranges. I know over the years we've talked about like it kind of disappearing. Like not a lot of guys rely on it anymore. But Joel's one of those few, handful of guys in the league that do, and
Right.
does it really efficiently. Um, and that's what I think about when I think about his case for MVP this year. It's like people will talk about the games played and all, and that threshold that you have to meet for it to qualify. But even then, like when you were saying earlier about like this guy isn't even playing the fourth quarters of these games, it's like I think at some point you have to give a healthy, like you have to give healthy consideration to the kind of efficiency we're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing in those minutes? And I mean, there can't be a more efficient player in the league this year than Joel. I mean,
No.
there's
And Mark, to speak to that, right? You talk
Mhm.
about like the biggest difference between this season and last season is the minutes played. He's doing it
Right.
with such efficiency that he's not that he's able to kind of play those back-to-back games because they're games where he's not playing the fourth quarter.
Right.
So his MVP season. So I'm going to read you his stats. So 33.1 points per game. This year, 36. Last year, 10.2 rebounds. This year, 11.6. Assists, 4.1. This year, 5.9. Blocks, 1.7. This year, 1.9.
Yeah.
So every statistical category that means something for the MVP voting, he's gotten better.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think will help is that there's not someone else in the league that is doing what he's doing at a clip that he's doing it. And I think what we're also seeing is the fact that like players around the league recognize it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big part of it too.
Mhm.
When, you have that because like all, players today, like especially in the NBA, a lot of them use their platforms for those kinds of things. And,
True.
if the voters don't, in their eyes, get it right, they'll be vocal about it. And that'll spark conversation about, and it may influence the next one. It's just kind
Yeah,
of
you're right.
like, yeah. So like they have the ability, uh, and they often use it to kind of like address those types of things. But I think like the efficiency part of it is just like there's no like if you're playing a lot of minutes, but you're not as efficient in those minutes, it's like what is really the purpose of all those minutes if you're you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's like on the flip side of that, if you're in every major statistical category, you're better than you were, and you were considered the best player in the league the year before. It's like,
Right.
just from a narrative perspective, how do you not end up with it again?
Right.
Because nobody's doing it at that kind of like efficient level. It's absurd. But I mean, like he would be the next if he wins it this year. I was doing a little bit of research last night, looking into
Okay.
things. Um, Wilt won 3 straight MVPs or 4 MVPs in the 60s. I think
Okay.
it was 65 through 68 or something. He won 3
Okay.
straight. Moses Malone did it. He won back-to-back MVPs, but he's the only player in history to win it with 2 separate teams. He won it with the
Oh,
Sixers, and then he was with, I think, Atlanta the following year, and he won it again.
okay.
So, really, you would have to go all the way back to the '60s to find a Sixer to win it in back-to-back years, which would be Walt.
Okay.
And, I mean, like, looking at those numbers, I mean, like, Walt's universally considered one of the greatest players of all time. To go back to that point, like, that we were making earlier about just kind of, like, enjoying the moments in the moments. I mean, just like it's truly historic. It's not like hyperbole on our part by saying like, oh, this is amazing. No, it really
Right.
is. This is like historically special stuff. And I feel bad for the people that are missing it.
Yeah, it really does make me question, like, why are you a fan then? Like,
Right.
if everything is about complaining,
Right.
then and I'm not saying like sit here and like let's all drink the Gatorade like
Right.
all
Yeah.
all year long. Like I'm not saying like look at like you can be critical of the team, but like if that's all that you are and all that you're looking at, then you're I would tell you you're in it for the wrong reasons. Like
Right.
like you might as well at that point like drop the fandom of those teams and go like go root for somebody. But like
Right.
to root for the negative part is the part that I just can't wrap my head around.
Right.
And I'm just not here for it. I'm just like I love being a fan of these teams and I love watching these teams play and I love like especially when you have a generational talent like they have. I really just wish that there was like that we've had the success in the playoffs, and that at the end of the day truly is what this team will be measured on. I
Mhm.
really feel like the team that they have built around them, when healthy, and health has been something that they've tried to kind of navigate over the course of these last couple of weeks. They've kind of they've had to go deep into the roster. You're seeing some of the guys on the two-way contracts. You're seeing a lot more Furkan Korkmaz than I would really like. A lot more Daniel House.
Yeah.
But you look at like Embiid. He's got the he extended the streak the other night in Indiana with the 30 consecutive or the 30 plus point games this season. I think it's 23, 22, 23. But just wildly impressive. The one,
Mhm.
this is the other one I saw, right? This is from Hoop Muse, which is like an offshoot of that. But
Mhm.
so before that game, that 70-point game, Giannis had the season high with 62 or 64.
Oh yeah.
Embiid had 59 through three quarters.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool to see, man. He in the first quarter, he had 8 free throws. The whole Spurs team had 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That's
it was it's just such a cool thing to see. But let's talk about so Maxi so Embiid gets the All-Star nod. So
Mhm.
he's going to be it's going to be his 6th All-Star appearance. Maxi seems like he's going to be one of the candidates for the guys that's going to get nominated for one of the reserve roles. Talk about that in terms of how important that is in terms of attracting talent to this team.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Like for that perspective, I think players around the league look at situations, especially when you hit free agency or you've kind of had a falling out with the team that you're on. You kind of try to look for other places where you can be like you can be a third guy, or maybe for in other cases, guys are looking to go to a team where they can be the guy.
Right.
Um, I think having 2 guys there and looking at the years that they've had, and then we'll see how it goes come playoff time. But I would have to imagine if you're a free agent, you're looking at that like, man, they're really not that far away. They have Tyrese and Joel, and I really want to add to that. I think I could help them. You see that often when
Mhm.
we see the kind of like there's been lots of talk over many years about the NBA's big three, you know, like you need a big three. And, you know, like I think that being in the All-Star game, both of them, I think kind of attributes to the fact that, you know, they're there, but maybe there's one other, maybe they're missing one guy. And I think
Yeah.
like when players look at that come free agency time, or they're looking to get traded and they would prefer certain options, I think that that only helps the Sixers case,
Yeah.
especially coming up this summer, because if you're looking at the totality of the whole thing, the Sixers will have a little bit of space to play around with to fit one more guy in. So
Mhm.
that'll be um, a significant part of it. But I think like for this season, seeing the both of them play at the level that they're playing at, and then come playoff time, see how far they could take it.
Yeah.
And then because if you get over the hump, if you get over that second round hump and you get into the Eastern Conference Final, it's an even easier sell to a potential attractive free agent to be like, look how close we are. You know,
Yeah.
maybe we're a piece away. And you know, I think it's really it's not insignificant at all. It's a nice honor for both players, and they definitely deserve to go.
Right.
Tyrese in particular definitely deserves the opportunity.
Mhm.
You know, even as a reserve, I think, you know, he deserves to get the nod. He's been great for them all year.
Yeah, to be considered in that upper echelon of players
Yeah.
really just does make them more attractive, right? And you look at they're essentially their quote unquote big three between he and Embiid and Toby.
Mhm.
Who's their fourth best player?
Fourth best player. You know, maybe Pat. Maybe
Uh,
Pat Bev.
like the
Kelly.
so like I heard him talking about this on the radio and I'm going, geez, like wow, yeah, we've talked about how important and how good that like that second tier of players is on this roster,
Yeah.
but then I was like, because in the playoffs, right, you're gonna need efficiency from those players at the at that point in the roster because the upper echelon guys sometimes cancel each other out,
Mhm.
right? You're going to look at like Boston. You're going to look at Jaylen Brown, and you're going to look at Jason Tatum, and you're going to have Embiid and Maxey, and they're going to kind of cancel each other out. But it's those
Mhm.
guys in that next tier that like how does Toby and Porzingis match up? What
Right.
who? So like I look at like, is it like Nick Batum? Is it Kelly Oubre? Is it like because they have like it seems like there's more like when I like really kind of dive deep into look at the roster, the gap in between the top three and then that next group may be a little bit wider than we want to admit.
Mhm.
And maybe, the idea of adding somebody, and I think this is where the buyout market is going to be really important. I know they've been linked to
Right.
guys like Kyle Lowry, which is a guy who has a ton of playoff experience.
Mhm.
But the Pacers add Pascal Siakam in that deal where they
Yeah. How about that?
that package includes Bruce Brown and first the 3 first round picks. Uh,
Mhm.
that was a guy I really 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 would have liked to be in on because I think that would have elevated the level of your top tier of talent. Um, the only guy there's a guy that we've talked about that they haven't been linked to, but like the DeJounte Murray is a guy that we've talked about, and then the Bogdanoviches are guys that we've talked about. We've talked
Mhm.
about Zach LaVine. Does that seem like more of a reach now, or does that seem like something like that they would pursue? Because the trade deadline is going to come up in like the next 2 weeks, like
Yeah.
the second week in February.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. I think this like the more like as guys kind of come off the board leading into the deadline, one of the people that keep hanging around that we keep hearing about, not even just with the Sixers, but is Levine. Like we keep hearing about like Levine's like somebody who there's been a lot of talk about him throughout the season, but
Yeah.
there's been less about it with the other trades that happened recently. Like RJ Barrett was traded for OG Anunoby.
Right.
And there was other pieces to that deal, but they were the two core guys. And then, Siakam getting traded to Indiana, which for, just taking a step back just in basketball fandom, I think that's a great fit for them, for the
Yeah.
Pacers. With
They are they're an undercover team that I feel like could be really dangerous in a playoff series because they can
Yeah.
just fill it up. Like you saw them put up what, like 100 and almost 140 points without Tyrese Halliburton.
yeah,
They're a team I would watch in the
Yeah.
playoffs because I feel like
And
in a series they could be dangerous.
we've talked about Tyrese Halliburton on this show
Hmm.
a couple times and how impressive he is, and just like one of the better ball distributors I think in the whole league. So he not only can get his, but he can make other guys around him better,
Right.
and get them shots. So that's I'm with you there. I think they're definitely an undercover team, but yeah, I mean, like the Kyle Lowry thing, I would love to add another guard to this mix. Lowry's one of those guys too, not only a Philly guy and a Philly native, and that always seemed like it was a natural fit for him. But one thing about Kyle is like, I think when the playoffs roll around, I mean, he has zero fear. Like he's never been a player who I think has been like afraid of the moment. He'll go and he'll take the shot. When you see when guys are kind of like swinging it around and it doesn't look like, it looks like nobody wants to take the shot. Like Kyle always seems like he's ready to do that. And I think he would be a positive influence on a guy like Maxey, just by virtue of being like this another quality veteran who's been in this league for a long time. He's won, like he knows what it takes. And I would be open to that. I still think as well, I think I've said it here on this show with you, Don, like I still think Alex Caruso, I think they're going to like sniff around that when that rolls around.
I think so too.
He's another guy who does things out there, like besides just like trying to score, he'll do other things as well. And the Murray stuff, I want to say, like, I feel like I've heard him. I know that we've talked about him being connected to the Spurs, going back to the Spurs, but I feel like there was another team that it has been lost on me. I can't remember the team.
Some of the stuff some of the stuff I was looking at were like Lakers. The Lakers are
that's who it was. Yeah,
the link between he and essentially swapping D'Angelo Russell,
right?
Plus, like some picks and players and stuff, but and the Lakers, they're going to be just because they are the franchise that they are and they carry the weight with LeBron and AD, they're going to kind of always be in the conversation. But I'm going to give you, so I'm pulling up an article on Bleacher Report about buyout guys. And I just want your kind of initial thoughts, just a yay or a nay, just yes or a no.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to give you Alec Burks.
No.
In or out. Okay.
No.
We're going to skip Gallinari because Joe Harris.
Yes.
Okay. Gordon Hayward.
Yes.
Okay. Doug McDermott.
No.
Patty Mills.
Yes.
Kelly Olynyk.
No.
Okay. I'm going to skip Chetty Osman. DeLon Wright.
Yes.
All right. Blast from the past. Process man himself. Thaddeus Young.
Oh man. No, I don't want to say no, Thad. I'm sorry, but I'm going to pass on Thad.
Okay. All right. So like perimeter scoring. Perimeter scoring to me seems like the place where kind of I would go to, right? You get essentially what the NBA would call their 3-and-D guys. So
right.
I'm kind of with you on all that. Like Thad Young intrigues me a little bit just with his length and defensive presence and kind of in the same mold, maybe not as talented as like a guy that we've talked about a lot with the guy they got on the roster right now. Why am I drawing a blank? Holy shit! I'm just sitting here. Our guy Kelly Oubre.
Kelly
It
Oubre,
seems
yes.
like in that mold of a player.
Yeah.
So on that level, right? But the buyout market is like, they're getting bought out for whatever reason. So they do have, from what I've read, a lot of financial flexibility in terms of teams that are still contending. So they're going to be. It seems like they're probably going to be more active in the buyout market than they would be in a trade. But they are going to have, Thaddeus. They're going to have, Tobias Harris coming off the books in the off season. So it should be interesting to see what and how this plays out. So
Yeah,
Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think also with that, not that you ever like try to build your team in that way, but I think when I look at a team like Boston, for example, when I look at the Celtics, and if you're inevitably going to run into Boston in the playoffs, they've always been a team that I think, like in the past when the Sixers have ran into them, they're just like, they've had like a more athletic group. They have a lot of options. Tatum and Brown have always been tough matchups for them. And I think if I were to like go and look at the buyout market, those 3-and-D guys, the perimeter scoring, those types of things, I think I would want guys in that spot where, like, hey, in a 7-game series with Boston, these guys could help us in that series. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know that a league executive kind of builds their team that way, but I think it would be on my mind, like Gordon Hayward or someone like that. And the guys like Patty Mills, like these perimeter, I'm like, these guys could probably help us in a series against Boston. And that's kind of like, because that's on my mind, because I think we're inevitably going to run into them. I think that's a part of it. Not that I think anybody builds their team that way, as I said, but I think that would be, I think that also influenced my decision, like in the yes or no part of it.
I hear you. I mean, listen, it's an exciting part of the season, right? Because they're right in that mix at the top with Boston and with Milwaukee, and they're going to have to go through, right? Milwaukee, makes a coaching change, right? They bring in Doc Rivers, which I think all the Sixers fans were really excited about that, because we know what that turns into. They turn into pumpkins in the playoffs. In terms of teams that are coached by Doc Rivers, doesn't matter how much talent they have. But like Boston moved on from Marcus Smart, and we all thought that like that was going to be a huge piece that they were going to miss, and they have not missed a beat. They just kind of bring in they've actually looks like they've gotten better by the guys that they've kind of brought in. They moved on from Malcolm Brogdon. Like they moved on from some guys that have some street cred in this league, and they just don't miss a beat. It's a team we love to hate, man. It's just another team from Boston that can go kick rocks.
Yeah, they're still, like when they added Porzingis, right? Like I went through it all, right? The injuries and all that. Kristaps Porzingis was always a really, really talented guy. So it was like, I hate it. I hate them. But they know talent. It's kind of like an Atlanta Braves thing, like where the Braves are just, and it's just like, man, they're always kind of around. They're always.
But are the Sixers the Phillies or the Braves? The Sixers lately feel more like the Braves.
They do.
Right? Like they're there, but like when it comes time in playoffs, they're just nowhere to be found.
Yeah. So maybe they are.
You never know. Mark, anything else Sixers you want to jump out before we play some commercials?
Nothing I could think of. Just that I'm gonna use this platform to make sure that voters understand that efficiency matters, and that please give that consideration when you cast your vote for Joel Embiid for MVP. So, or anybody else for that matter.
Yeah. Really, just look at that. It's the kind of thing where you you want to take the whole story. You want to
Yeah.
just not read this. You don't want to read, like, you can't, this is not one where you can read the Cliff Notes.
No.
You actually got to go read the book, because this one is this is a season that, you know, I think people will look back very fondly on. This one is going to age gracefully with we'll look back as fans and talk about how important the season this was. But listen, we're going to play some commercials on the back end. We're going to talk all things Flyers. So check us out. We'll be right back.
Von C Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer gardens in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torrens' curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
Iverson, wow, what a fake on Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Oh, and we're back. Mark, time to talk all things Flyers. I would tell you that it's been a week, but it's been one hell of a week.
Yeah.
Sadly, the news kind of drops that, you know, let's backtrack. It starts with the release that the Flyers put out where they basically say that Carter Hart's taken, you know, an indefinite leave of absence. that he's citing personal reasons. Club, and the club has no further comment. Similar statements put out by other teams, Flames, Devils, all the teams that had the 5 players involved. And I guess then the news stories start to trickle out, right? You see the news reports that come out of London, Ontario, and the police department, and they're waiting for those guys to turn themselves in. We just can't have nice things, man.
Yeah. It's such a delicate thing, right? Like,
It really is.
to talk about. First of all, I mean, I hope that the justice system plays out in a way that there's some kind of closure. Not that maybe there's ever really closure, but that something comes of this for the victim.
Yeah. I echo those sentiments like 1,000,000%. This is not about this player or these players or this team. More importantly, it's about the person in this that will be affected the most, which is the victim. So,
right. And I commend her like bravery for wanting to
100%.
Open herself up to what will be all kinds of criticisms or just outright sexism or whatever the case may be. And the Flyers were very mum about it, as were the other teams. I think that was a legal thing. I think that the statement that Briere read on, I believe, Wednesday, I think was when he spoke to the media, which he was scheduled to speak anyway. He had like a scheduled meeting with the media regardless, and they just happened to have this stuff come down the pike about Hart taking a leave of absence, and that it could be connected to the 2018 Hockey Canada scandal. And but the statement that he had read was a prepared statement. It seemed like it was very it looked like it was a lot of legality in it, in terms of I'm sure they were
what the teams released, what the Flyers spoke of. It seems like that was a directive from even above the organization, that this was a league to say, hey, listen, we're gonna handle this universally, which if they did, kudos to them for handling it in that way. Because that does do a really good job at paying respect to the victim as well, to say we're going to try to handle this without a whole lot of carnival and leave ourselves open to any extra questions, to say like, hey, listen, we're going to let this play out. We're going to make sure that the players are doing what they're supposed to do, that they're available, and that they're cooperating. But this is just not great, especially from a team perspective. You've got a guy who's the center of your rebuild, and you don't essentially know what and how this is going to play out. Just a shame.
Yeah,
a shame.
it is.
Levels.
Yeah, it's a shame for everybody involved. I think about not only the family of the victim, but the families of the players that were that could like have involvement, how that'll affect their lives. And like too, and this is more, I guess, a comment for how things are spoken about on the internet and things like that. But you're allowed to have concurrent thoughts about things like this, right? You can be disgusted and appalled about what had happened here. You can also have the thought of like, well, how's this going to affect my favorite team and a player that maybe that I I enjoyed watching play for my team, or and as far as like that goes, as far as that's concerned for the Flyers, I think they have the ability with this situation and it being Hart being a vocal point of their entire situation, the rebuild, the current iteration of the team, maybe what the team looks like in 3 to 5 years. You would have thought he would have been a part of it. Now I don't know that he'll ever play again, depending on how this shakes out.
Yeah.
And and with good reason, if it does get proven in court that there was malicious action intent, with
absolutely.
So beyond that, I think or not so much beyond that, but as a side, I think for the organization in general, it's a good thing that they're able to move ahead with Sam Ersson this year, hand the reins over to Sam, who's been good this year, but he's only 24 years old, and it could be a lot of responsibility for him. But organizationally, across the board, the Flyer, one of their strengths in the organization is that they have a lot of goaltenders, with prominent potential. So, and I think we've seen this play out for the Flyers over the last couple of weeks. I think that this is kind of graded on them. The team's also in somewhat of a slide right now. There's a lot going on around the team, involving a teammate and someone maybe guys considered a friend and still do. Or maybe just you considered someone a friend and you thought you knew them better than you did.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, right? Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics that are happening right now. You're like what you're talking about. There's a whole mental piece about like, do I really know this guy who is my teammate the way I thought I know him? Is he, is he a guy that that this kind of situation just makes you question as a person and as a teammate and as a player. And it does it does weigh on you. It doesn't help that they're in a really tough stretch of games right now where they're playing teams that are really playing well. I mean, you're coming off, winning 6 out of 7.
Yeah.
But you lose 4 consecutive games. You're going to play Boston today at, around 12:30. You lose to Colorado, Ottawa, Tampa, and Detroit. It's going to be a really tough stretch, right? Because now after this, you're going to play. I'm just going to pull up next month's schedule, but you're going to play Boston, Florida, Winnipeg, Seattle, Arizona. Like you've got 4 more straight games against teams that are playing really well.
Yeah. They're going to play. This is somewhat of a gauntlet for the Flyers, like a mid-season gauntlet, because a lot of these teams are very good. And today's game, later today, this afternoon, Boston's coming into town. They're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference. So the All-Star break is coming up for the Flyers. The Flyers also have their league mandated bye week coming up here, where they'll be all the Flyers are off after today. They'll be off until after the All-Star break. I don't think they come back till sometime in February.
So they play today, and then they don't play again until the Florida game after the break is February 6th.
Yeah, so they'll be back the 6th, and I think it's this is a good time to step away from everything, the rink, maybe go on vacation, and just kind of.
I get this feeling like there's a lot of island adventures that are about to happen where guys could just, they step away because it's
for the love of God, stay out of trouble.
Can you just go with your family? Take your family somewhere, go to Disney World, take your kids somewhere, or just stay at your house in South Jersey. I don't need like this is a time where like I don't need any new news. Like
Yeah.
the news that's come out has been enough to kind of tackle on a personal level, on a fan level, and then you kind of put yourself in the middle because you know that like the more important perspective is on the personal level and thinking about the victim and thinking about how it's affecting her and her life and her family from this point moving on.
Yeah.
But that at some point your mind wanders to like how it affects the team, and like it's weird to be in that spot where you're like, is it a personal thing? Is it a fan thing? And then like it's a blended thing. It's all
Right.
one thing. And you know, we've seen this before with other sports, with other scandals, with other things that have happened.
Right.
But the stretch when they come back after the All-Star break, right? We talked about Florida, Winnipeg, Seattle. They have Arizona, which is a team that's kind of a beatable team. But even after Arizona, right, you're going to go at Toronto. You have the February 17th outdoor game with New Jersey.
Yep.
But then you're going to go play at Chicago, New York, at Pittsburgh, Tampa. Like your month of February is going to be. We might start to see the team kind of come back to center a little bit. They've been playing really, really well outside of this last 4-game stretch. But again, watching this team with no reasonable expectation of anything
Yeah.
really does, you know, it lets you navigate these kind of ebbs and flows a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just where this has gone this year, how well they played in general in the first half of the season. I certainly did not anticipate. But yeah, you kind of get pulled to the center a little bit when you're a little bit in over your head, or you've played really well. But you know, underlining numbers though for the Flyers have been strong, which would suggest that they could keep this play up, which is that's certainly a positive sign. But then, you know, like on the flip side of that argument, it's just that some of these teams that have a lot, you know, on paper and just from a roster configuration standpoint, they possess more talent. As the season wears along and the games get more important, you know, water tends to find its level. And it's just that's just kind of how hockey works. And that doesn't mean, though, that I'm not coming away super happy with how things have gone, and that they're close. They're closer than maybe I thought, and that's a positive sign looking forward. That maybe they're not that far away. And God, you know, I mean, like they still could make the playoffs this year. That's not, you know, that's not out of the realm of possibility either.
Right.
So, but this next couple weeks of games coming up for the Flyers, this is a tough stretch, and they're going to play a lot of good teams here. In addition to that, I think I wrote about this in one of the.
I was going to say this was in one of your articles.
Yeah, I like about the Flyers have run with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen for a little while now, and I think that also that's something that it's a good short-term strategy, like in the middle of the season. I think when you start relying on it a little too much, you start wearing guys out, you know. It's hard for D pairs to kind of, you know, when you're playing with a rotating kind of situation where you're playing with a different partner every so many shifts, that chemistry could be signals could get crossed. And then for the forward group, you know, you're playing one short. A lot of guys are getting ice time, which is in one situation a good thing.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, it's just like you're playing a lot of minutes. You know, you're relying on guys to play a lot of heavy minutes. And then if, you know, you shorten up your bench, you're playing even more minutes, you know? So
you're right.
So I think fatigue's playing a factor in where, you know, how they've played lately as well. So
do you think that becomes like a rotation of like sending guys down, bringing guys up. Like we've seen them be kind of active on, sending guys down to Lehigh Valley. You saw Bobby Brink go down there. He's down there playing right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that becomes something that they kind of move through the rest of the season in terms of like rotate, like maybe they're not keeping those guys on the active roster, but like bringing guys up from Lehigh Valley, sending guys down?
Yeah, I think that adding Jamie Drysdale, that played a factor into it. Not that you wouldn't want to acquire Jamie Drysdale, and you certainly wouldn't not acquire him for those reasons. But I think that the Flyers anticipate making some trades at the deadline that'll open up some spots, and they'll be able to slide guys into positions. Like they'll be able to more easily slot guys into spots because they'll have the space to do it. Bobby Brink was a player too. I think, they sent him down because they wanted him to get the ice time. But it kind of goes with the conversation. If you were still with us on the Sixers show prior to the break, was like we were talking about Embiid and the efficiency of the minutes. Right. Sending a guy down the Lehigh Valley because you want him to get minutes isn't always. I don't know that that's always like as positive of a thing. Like it really matters what you do in those minutes. So if you're playing at the NHL level and you're not getting 20 minutes a night, but you're playing well, you'll stay in the lineup. If you're not, and they want you to just kind of play a bunch of minutes down there because we don't really have a spot for you right now because the roster is kind of crowded, then it's just kind of like you can play a lot of minutes in Lehigh Valley on the top line, but it really matters about what you do in those minutes.
Right. And, what are you doing?
So, I think the Flyers will look somewhat different after the trade deadline. I think that they have said recently, they're not losing sight of the future. And I think that suggests that there are some guys on the roster that they probably won't be here after the deadline. I don't know who that might be, but it kind of sounds like they're anticipating some moves here.
Yeah. No. All right. So who are some guys that are some candidates for you?
I know that there's been a lot of talk about him, but I think Sean Walker is somebody who's probably going to be moved on here. I think that whatever he fetches in a trade will probably be more valuable to them at this point. He's a free agent after this year. Sean's played really, really well for the Flyers this year. And I also think, though, again, the Jamie Drysdale trade changed some of those things. Whereas, like before they acquired Drysdale, they were looking more into, maybe we'll re-sign Sean Walker. Maybe like we'll keep him because he's played so well. I think that kind of changed once they acquired Drysdale, and they felt more comfortable moving on. And hey, I mean, like if they're able to get a first rounder or an equivalent, if they can identify a prospect, like they kind of identified Owen Tippett in the Claude Giroux trade, a guy that maybe has been shoved down the depth chart somewhere, but was shoved down the depth chart due to like a numbers game, not necessarily because they can't play at this level. And then you get an opportunity to bring someone in who's got some ability that just hasn't been able to show it yet. So
I agree. I think and you saw that the later on in the week, right, when they hand out the extensions, right, the Owen Tippett extension for essentially locking him up for the next better part of a decade for 8 years, right? He's got the 6.5 AAV, which is for a guy who's been as talented as he has in the time that we've seen him. We're coming in close to a calendar year with him. I think getting him at that number is a really, really good way to kind of allocate your money. And then you see the news with Ryan Perley earlier, or later on, a couple of days later, that they're kind of that they're able to swing a deal with him to get his contract extended for another 2 years. You see that they're doing a good job at identifying talent, young talent that they want to keep around, and then realizing the pieces and assets that are kind of on the auxiliary that, they're not going to be a position to kind of acquire big name talent, but that they could be efficient in terms of using what they have right now to kind of move them further down the line, which go back to something you said earlier, right? The fact that they are closer is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
They're not there, but you can see that they're kind of taking steps in progress to kind of move themselves forward. Nick Sealer and Morgan Frost. Sealer's another guy who's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Those are guys that like I could see if they're going to swing a deal. Those are two other guys that I think might be guys that they'd be willing to move on from.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I think the Flyers have really talked up Nick Sealer lately. I think they're big fans of him. Like, I don't think that that's just, what do you call
Pumping his tires?
Yeah, I don't think they're just pumping his tires. I think they really do legitimately like him.
Okay.
He's been a really great teammate. Everybody has like positive things to say about Nick. He's tough as nails, works his tail off. He's a good player.
Yeah,
and
I mean, he's
put in the work. Yeah, he's put in the work.
I mean, listen, he's 31, so he's on the back. He's on the he could be an experienced guy that could come in and be productive for somebody. He's cheap. He's making $775,000 cap hit. So and he's an unrestricted free agent. So like you're getting a guy for a stretch run. You're probably not going to have to give up much. But again, if it's going to be get an asset now versus lose him in free agency and get nothing, and you're not, it's not a make or break. Like right now, their odds to make the playoffs as of today are like 68%, which is still really great. It's still, kind of, it's on the better half of making the playoffs when you have, you really came into the season with kind of zero expectations. Any other guys? Are there any other guys on your list as far as trade candidates?
Sealer's interesting. You mentioned the Ryan Poehling extension, and I do think with the Poehling extension, I wonder what that means for a player like Scott Lawton. Lawton, going back a few years here, it's been reported by Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick, like on their show, that like the Flyers have gotten offers in the past that they've turned down for Scotty Lawton. And he's been a really good soldier here. He loves playing here. He's the only player wearing a letter right now for the team. Yeah. And I think that, Poehling's younger, cheaper, and he does a lot of the same things. So
you're not wrong.
I think
I didn't think about it until you said it, but you're not wrong.
Yeah. So I'm starting to think, maybe they pull the trigger now on a Lawton trade. It would suck because he's been here he's only ever played here. He's always expressed his like love of playing in Philadelphia. And you want guys like when we mention guys like Sealer and Lawton, the Flyers have been very, very they've been very open and adamant about like how they wanted to kind of foster a new culture or bring back some of the old culture, whatever, verbiage you want to use to describe it. And Lawton and Sealer are like kind of culture type guys. Like they kind of play like the quote unquote Flyer way. And, but I mean, it's a business. It's a business. So I think
at the end of the day, yes, you're absolutely right.
I do wonder about his status now that they have Ryan Poehling locked up, who's played well for them as a good bottom six, PKer. He's chipped in some offense this year. He's done some good things, and he earned that contract. But at the same time, it's like, do you really need more than one guy who kind of bring that? So Lawton's another one that I think it makes me wonder about him now that Paling's got that new deal.
Gotcha. I hear you. Well, listen, I'm curious to see when this, when this does kind of play out. Now the other news that drops a little bit more lighter and brighter news, right?
Yeah.
The Flyers and the three other teams released their outdoor game uniforms, which I really like.
Yeah.
So let's zero in on the Flyers first. What are your initial thoughts about the Flyers? As a guy who is a connoisseur of jerseys, I like it. I like I like it. It looks newer, but it looks really clean.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. Like, I really, really like this jersey. I kind of like the black piping on the top there. It goes all the way around to the back, like across the name bar. And you don't see that. Like, that's not like really a look that you kind of see.
Right.
And I kind of like that. And I like that too. Like, they have the numbers up on the shoulders, which is not a look that the Flyers typically do.
That's more of a football thing.
Yeah, more of a football kind of look. And I really like that. And the logo, of course, is front and center, as it always is. And it is. I agree. It's a clean jersey. It's a little bit different than what they've done before. So I like that about it. And it's sharp. I think I'm going to have to get one too.
Yeah. Yeah. This might, now listen, when I don't know if I can get this on a legit site, because the other day, like we're all on the mailing list. So I got the link to buy it directly from the NHL, and it was like $275, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, like nah, I'm gonna wait for I'll wait for one of the off-brand sites to kind of rip it off and and pay, and I'll wait the 5-6 weeks to get it. But it's really clean, and it's odd because what's not odd is, like, doesn't matter what jersey they go with, that the logo is always front and center, and it's always the logo. Even when their last outdoor game, the one that they played at home, that was like the solid orange.
Yeah.
So it's always the logo, because I saw some renderings of what some of the other versions of people, what they thought it could be. Right. And the one that I kind of liked, almost because it wasn't the logo, was like the scripted Flyers across the front.
Yeah.
Like, so it was in like it was an all orange jersey with the script across the front, which I liked. Just maybe just because it was different, but it is really, really clean. And out of all of the jerseys, I might be partial because it's my squad, but I really do like, I like it compared to the other ones. So what are your thoughts on the other ones? Because the Rangers one I don't hate. I do like that. It's a different take on the jersey, but I do like it.
I feel like the Rangers, like, if I had to pick out of the three, like, if the Flyers are number one for me, I think that the Rangers would be 1B, and I hate it because it's the Rangers, but it's like, it's a perfect blend, I think, of like new and old school. Like, they've always done the diagonal script. That's like very classic Rangers.
Yeah.
NYR across it real big, I think, is kind of cool. It's got the jersey tie at the top, so it kind of has that classic look. I really, really like that. And I'm assuming they're going to wear like blue pants with that. It's going to look sharp, I think, on ice. And, I'm a big fan of that jersey too, even though I hate the Rangers. It's really, that's a really nice sweater. I kind of like or like, rather, I should say, the Islanders jersey is very like ugly Christmas sweater. Like, if you're, I don't know what was going on there.
It's crazy that you say so. Like, the Islanders one, really, like, it really does just like scream of like, how simple can we make this?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, so we're just gonna like draw a straight line across the top and a straight line across the bottom, and we're just gonna make it all kind of match up.
Yeah.
And the hard part is, like, there's so much tradition in that franchise
Yeah.
in the success that they had in the late 70s, and the color scheme that you could have gone with, um, because they've had some really classic uniforms that
Mhm.
that look really sharp, and I feel like this could have been a time where you could have called back to a little bit of that era.
Yeah.
um yeah, those teams in the late 70s were
Mhm.
just wildly successful. And this just seems like a, how do I say this politely? It seems like an off-brand, like knockoff that you might find at like Peddler's Village. Like it seems like you let like the kindergarten class design that one, and they're
Yeah.
just like, oh, let's just put letters.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of thought. I don't mind the Devils one. I'm not a huge fan of. It seems
Mhm.
like almost too simple.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. I get it. But
Yeah.
like the Islanders one, it doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. The Devils one, I feel like for me, I mean, like they have that really, I always thought the Devils logo was always very cool with the devil tail on it. And
Mhm.
I think it's simple. It gets the job done,
Yeah.
it's fine. The Islanders one though, I just all I can picture is like across the front with the Isles script on it. It's just like I was saying, like I just a couple Christmas trees and maybe a reindeer on there, and you have your like Islanders ugly Christmas sweater. That's just all I see when I see this jersey.
Oh God,
And they go navy
Mark.
blue too, which is like you were just
Yeah.
saying about like they have the classic blue they could have gone back to with their classic look. But yeah, navy blue, I don't know. And I like navy blue too, but I just
I-
and they have a
Listen.
great logo too, and it's nowhere to be seen on it. So I
Yeah.
don't
All
know.
right. So Mark, all right. So I'm gonna swap sharing the screens here because
Okay.
just for us, I had to pull up I just Googled Islanders ugly Christmas sweaters just
Oh
to see
boy.
see how close we
Okay.
are to some of them.
All right.
Like, all right, here we go. You ready? Look at this one.
Yeah. That is
It
that is
looks
what the jersey is.
it looks wildly similar, right? You've got the giant band across it with the word
Yeah.
island. Um, it's just like
That is the jersey. That is the
that,
jersey
that
right there.
like this is something that I didn't think that I would be finding as good of a comp, but like all I did was Google Islanders ugly Christmas sweaters,
Yeah.
and I'm there. Like I
Wow.
just oh
That
God,
that
it's
is eerily similar to what they're wearing.
it is kind of wild. Like I would have loved like this logo.
Yeah.
I love the NY with the island across the bottom.
Yeah.
Like even if you had just stuck that logo in the
Mhm.
middle, it's a callback. It's a callback to a time when your city was like, I know that they got roasted for this logo. Um that like fans were not happy when they kind of switched to
Yeah.
that, but like oh god, the fact that I
Yeah.
was able to co- just just do that just on a whim, just
Yeah.
Google searching. Um, jeez.
And see, look at that. They're out of stock too. So people probably bought them. They're gonna wear them to the rink for the game.
Because
You
it'll be
know?
it'll be cheaper than buying. It was cheaper than buying the two
Yeah, it'll
hundred and
be
seventy $5 jersey. So they just
yeah.
buy something that's like pretty damn close to it.
It's close enough and kind of
Oh
works. So
man.
yeah, I don't know, man. The Islanders jersey, I don't know what's going on there, but the other ones are fine. I really like the Rangers jersey though. I will say
It is. It is
that
nice. I
one's
do like
sharp.
it. And they are. I love that you've got like they are one of the origin franchises. So like
Mhm.
it is nice to see them kind of do a really solid blend of old and new.
Yeah.
To keep to a tradition of the diagonal letter script.
Yeah.
But just, really, really, really curious about how they look out there, because I think that, and I love the idea of what they're doing with this outdoor game, that they're having 4 teams play at one
Mhm.
location. I think that that's something that that we might see moving forward in terms of. But next show, let's talk different outdoor games. Talk about
Okay.
places maybe that they've played, maybe places that we'd like to see them play.
All right. Yeah. We'll definitely do
A-
that.
anything other Flyers that you wanna talk about before we jump out of here?
No, I think I mean, like, coming up, even though there's no Flyers hockey after today for a little while, the All-Star game's coming up, and Travis Konechny will be there,
That's
representing the
right.
Flyers, and that's a reason, at least for me, to watch. TK's been great this year for the Flyers, so um, you know we'll go out and if you ain't got nothing going on, watch the All-Star game, watch support TK, and hopefully he'll put on a show.
Before we jump out of here, speaking
Mhm.
of jerseys, did you see the All-Star jerseys?
I have,
What are your
unfortunately. I
thoughts?
wish I
Because I'm
didn't
gonna
see
pull
him.
them up.
They're man, these are rough. I think these are kind of rough. Um,
Here we go.
I always like, and maybe it was just because I was a kid. Yeah, I miss when they did the East West, um, just the Eastern Conference teal jerseys, the Western Conference purple jerseys. They were like, I love those.
Yeah.
These are like, I don't really get these. Like,
No, and like I don't get it either. I don't understand the fascination with it's like this is the thing that like this got all the way up the food chain and got
yeah,
okayed at every level, that they were like, "Ooh, I like those."
yeah,
Um, like I don't hate the idea of keeping it simple.
right,
I don't like the colors, to me, seem really random.
yeah,
Like I would have loved like to call back, right? You
right.
have like, you remember at some point when they had like the one was, they had like a black, a white, and an orange, and like all of them were
Hmm.
like, one was the white was prominent,
Hmm.
one was the black was prominent, one was the orange was prominent, because they were all kind of calls to that Campbell conference, kind of like that
Sure,
era.
sure.
Um, these colors just seem really random, and again, they seem like off-brand, like somewhat like misprint jerseys that like you would find at like a thrift store. Like I just
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not a fan of these. I'm trying to think of some recent ones that I thought were okay. Um, I'm having a hard time thinking of them. But
But like
um,
this just to me is like, I don't know, man.
yeah,
It just doesn't do it for me. And I'm a dude that like, I know my wife is in the next room listening, but like I know that like I'm not itching to go buy this one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
This one's tough. Uh,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And listen, like the idea with the nameplate, it's just it's I like that it's different. I like that it's clean. I like that it's kind of a blend of everything. But Mark,
yeah.
what do you got? You got is there a mid-year recap coming up on the an article coming up?
Yeah, so I plan to do that. We'll kind of like a gear in kind of review type of thing midway at the All-Star break here. I plan to have all kinds of uh, trade deadline stuff. Also, I have we're in the process of getting some water cooler talk Flyer podcast
Nice.
episodes back up and running. And I'll continue to do the weekly thing. We'll get a little bit of Sixers up there too, because we're getting to that point now where that picture's starting to come a little bit clearer. So that's what I plan to do here coming up for firedupsports.com. So
Very nice. Well, listen, we'll check us out on the next episode. We'll be back, but go Flyers.
Go Flyers. Peace.